welcome to another episode of the Scouting Report. Joining me today is Adonis. Thanks for joining us, Adonis. Would you want to tell the listeners, the viewers, who you are, what you do, where they can find you?
Hi, yes, so I'm the Leeds United fan writer for BBC Sport, and I run a podcast called the Roaring Peacock podcast. So, among your legions of Plymouth Argyle fans who are wanting a second team, I suppose you can give me a follow on Twitter at the Adelites.
Thank you ever so much. Right, before we get into it, the now infamous introduction. As always. Yeah, that's the reaction it normally gets. I can only apologise, as I always do. So, Plymouth Argyle, you must be sick of the sight of us, or rather excited to see us, since as we've shipped, 9 goals in the last 3 games. Played you 4 times last season. Slightly different. Slightly different.
3 times in a week, wasn't it? Or
it was. That's right. Yeah. You came down to us sandwiched between the cup and the replay. That's right. You didn't do too badly against us last season. You started okay this season. You were longer than evens to begin with, but now you're odds-on favourites, and yet you've drawn a good number of games. Is it 5 so far this season? 1-6. So what's the feeling, do you think, amongst the fans, and what's your personal feeling on how you're doing? Do you think you're living up to the title of the tag of title favourites, and do you think you deserve it?
So it's 3 games in 20 days, but it felt very.
It did
felt
feel
more condensed. It felt like I don't know. Anyway,
I think you had other things on your mind at the time, and we were an inconvenience to sort of
always.
fit in.
Well, you made it quite difficult for us. I remember that the FA Cup. We only decided to turn up after injury time. Oh, after extra time. Sorry. So yeah, and then in between that, there was we beat Rotherham 3-0 and Swansea 4-0. So they were easy compared to how difficult you made it for us in the cup. Are we deserved favourites to go up? Yeah, I think so. Last season, there was a lot of upheaval. We'd come off the back of 2 really poor seasons in the Premier League, where we shipped over 150 goals in total, and there was a transfer of ownership of the club. There were players who were leaving left, right, and centre due to contract clauses. There were players who were refusing to play. There were some players who were threatening to sue the club if they weren't allowed to, go and play for Bournemouth. In their fantastic stadium, which is obviously much better than ours, much better prospects for your career if you move to Bournemouth. Always said that. It's like a catchphrase at this. It's a cliche at this point. So we had a good run last season. Obviously, major disappointment and hangover after losing a playoff final, which there will always be. That's why so few teams who've lost a playoff final have gone on to do well the season after. And obviously, more contract clauses this summer, lost big players who caused major problems for you guys in our games against each other last season.
That extra time turning it on, Mr. Somerville. He was the one I suspect you wanted to keep above all else, and he left.
To me, it was actually great if we'd have kept him. I just think he was 17 years old, but he was almost our best player. So you can imagine how good he will become. But yeah, so Rutter, Somerville, obviously over 50 goals between them. So to lose those 2. And I think that's why it's been a bit of a shaky start, but we found our feet. To answer your question, yes, I think we are deserved favourites to go up. I think the Championship is weaker this season without Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester, who are all amazing. Let's face it, Championship record breaking start to last season for Leicester and Ipswich. And then of Southampton, obviously, a club record 25-27 match unbeaten run. So, yeah, it was very difficult. It feels less challenging this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the top is definitely not as strong, and the bottom also maybe not quite so weak. I feel like it's going to be a little bit more compressed this season.
And your
So
dog agrees as well.
yeah, she's wondering what all the noise is. Unfortunately, like I say, I'm short-handed. I was explaining to Adonis beforehand. I'm short-handed, so I'm wearing many hats while doing this. Always the professional. What we were discussing, you're happy your title favourites. Do you think that Argyle are going to cause you any problems this week, having seen our recent form, or do you think this is one you will easily put away?
Well, that's more a question for you, I think. You know, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know about Plymouth that much,
Well,
just because, yeah.
we're trying to play a very front foot style of football.
Oh dear.
Yes, exactly. So it's either going to go one of two ways. Either you'll come at us very much and we'll be able to counter and sort of get something, or we'll come at you and you'll do exactly that to us, and it'll be 6-0, I imagine.
If you
The
if you come and try and play football, it's not gonna work out very well for you.
Well,
I
it's
think
strange. I don't think it's working out for anybody very well. I mean, I think Sunderland
mm,
tried that a little bit, and it didn't work for them. And then I think when Sheffield United came and tried to be a little more compact, and that didn't really work for them either. So, you do seem to have the, I think maybe a little bit more than last season, a bit more diversity to the way you work. I don't know if that's because Farkas had a little bit more time, but I think there's a bit more nuance. Maybe it's some of the new players. Maybe it's just that last season you had that, you were just fighting against such top teams that every sort of little mistake or every little drop in points sort of was highlighted, magnified that much more. But yeah, I feel like we're on for a hiding when we come, regardless of how we set up. I think our fans would like to just see us try to try something a little bit more defensive in setup. But whether Leeds is the first game to try that, I think you're likely on a hide into nothing, whatever you try there. So it might be worth, for confidence sake, trying a new
well,
formation, a new
it's Wayne
style somewhere
Rooney.
else.
Wayne Rooney, the tactical mastermind. You never know what he's going to pull out of the bag, do you?
Yeah, well, less so. Well, to be fair, that's was one of the constant criticisms of Wayne Rooney throughout all his tenures was his inflexibility, both tactically and terms of setup and personnel. He has actually demonstrated, to his credit, a willingness to sort of try things differently, switch from a two defensive midfielders to the single pivot, and that did us well. But I do feel that we've been worked out. That little tweak to both our press and our build up has been. We had a good little run, including even though it was a loss, a decent performance against Burnley. But we sort of beat Luton at home quite convincingly, etc. Beat Blackburn at home. But I think after that little run, folks have seen what we've done and said, okay, right, they've changed this, and now maybe we're being worked on a little bit better. So there might be some more tweaks needed, and whether it's against Leeds that's the best time to sort of try and implement something new, whether that might
I
destroy the
think
confidence of that plan is another matter. But
it's going to be difficult for you because we've got the most touches in midfield of any team in the Championship, and the second closest is Burnley, and they've had 500 less or fewer, should I say, touches in midfield, and we've brought in Ao Tanaka, Japanese international, and Joe Rothwell, and they've been dominating that area of the pitch in a way, in a kind of different way that Ampadu and Gruev were previously. And I did feel like Ampadu and Gruev were the best midfield duo in the Championship, and then they both got injured within sort of 60 game minutes of each other. And now Tanaka and Rothwell have come in, and now I feel like they are definitely the best midfield duo in the Championship. So
So you've got both the best midfield duos in the Championship.
that's what. But I mean, it was an area that we needed to change from last season. I'm glad they isolated it and recruited in that area, and we just need goals from them now because we didn't have enough goals, and obviously, we didn't have enough goals to go up automatically last season. And now we've lost 50 plus, like I mentioned earlier, with Rutter and Somerville going. So we really need more goals from all different areas of the pitch.
Well, you segued beautifully to the next question I was going to ask, which was you've lost some big names, but you've also brought in a chunk of players who've seen good game time already and impressed, not just in the middle, but on the wings, etc. Obviously, some of our fans won't be following Leeds as religiously as some of our others. So could you give us a little bit of a lowdown? You just mentioned there your new midfield duo who are pulling strings well. Anybody else that fans should be might not recognise from last season who they'll likely see on the weekend to keep an eye out for?
Excuse me. Yeah, it's difficult to say if they'll likely see other players that we brought in. So Schmidt hasn't been able to work himself into the team. That's Isaac Schmidt, and he's a fullback. The other one was Laji Ramazani, who's done
Yeah,
very, very well.
that's who I was thinking of. Yeah.
Boxer tricks. But he's injured, unfortunately.
Oh,
So,
is he? Oh,
well,
well, that shows
fortunately
how
for
much
you,
prep I
unfortunately,
did.
man. But so he's injured. But we've got Nonto and Dan James
It's not bad. It's
filling
not
in for
bad.
him. So
That's
yeah,
an embarrassment of riches, I believe, is the cliche.
for the Championship, yes, for the Championship, we are like, yeah, we're the equivalent of, I don't know, Liverpool or somebody like that for Championship standards. And I do realise that there's a massive inequality to that. But that is borne about by the general inequality between the Premier League and the Championship. Every fan wants their team to have an opportunity to go to the big time. That's why when you see Ipswich, when you see what they did last season, it gives you hope. And when you see Leicester winning the Premier League, I know it was 10 years ago now. But that kind of gives you hope, that there's a chance that your team could go from rags to riches. I was looking up some stats. I didn't realise Plymouth are the largest city in the UK to never be in the top tier. Never
Yes,
have a football
indeed.
team in the top tier.
I think it's something like the biggest conurbation in Western Europe to never. I think there's some like massive sort of industrial cities in Ukraine, etc., that haven't seen top flight football. But yeah, and it is a geographic thing as much as anything. I think over the years, especially in the days of travel, on rickety old coaches, it's slightly easier to travel now. But even then, players, if you've got the choice between going to maybe a top League One club at up country near London, or even in the north, Yorkshire or Lancashire, there's plenty to do. There's lots to do. It takes an hour to get to Exeter. It takes 2 hours to get to Bristol, and then everything's past there. So, yeah, Plymouth is. I think it was a Leeds fan last season who joked we ought to be playing in Ligue 1 because of our position geographically. That, and we've never sort of had the money to throw around to do bits that can make a difference for clubs that are out on a limb. Sort of a bit like Bournemouths, etc., who are almost as far away for a not really, but when you've got money to dump into a club, then you can try and do something. So yeah, Plymouth.
Are you also in the realm of where a flight would be cheaper than taking the train?
Yeah, and we used to have an airport, which was very useful for when we occasionally could bring in big signings. You'd sort of fly them down, meet them on the tarmac with a shirt with their name on, and tell them how much they were wanted, and didn't sort
of pie and peas and
well, they didn't sort of know how far away. They didn't know
welcome
they
to
were.
England.
Yeah, Well, they didn't know they were going to be on a coach for 5 hours each way when they were once they'd signed. But now the
Oh
nearest
no.
airport is Exeter, and then you've still got an hour's drive, and I think that sort of makes people realise just how out on a limb we are. But yeah, our viewers, our listeners will well know that, and that's part of, I think, of our culture, our identity, that
I
kind
think
of.
that that gives your traveling support. I mean, that does so much credit to your traveling support, because I remember, yeah, you guys being one of the best, loudest away groups last season.
Yeah, I remember we brought. I took my lad to his first proper away game for the cup game. You're only here for the chinos, etc.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
It was no, it's a great atmosphere at Elland Road, and it's nice that because not all home grounds reciprocate that kind of away following, and we know we are quite proud of that, and we do try to be vocal. I mean, you need the dedication to travel all
Yeah.
that way and spend all that money, so you're going to enjoy yourself while you're there. But yeah, that is part of our identity, and of course, as you say, having never been in the top flight, we are. The number of times we got told last season that we'd enjoyed if we won, for example, away, or we enjoyed our cup game or our big day out for the season, because we are the bottom of everybody's sort of rankings in terms of teams of size and importance and historic value, if you like. So we everyone looks down their nose at us, and we enjoy bloodying the noses down which everyone is looking at us. Which this season, Leeds have the biggest team that we can take the scalp of. I'd suggest in many ways, and so last season we relished these opportunities to come and play you. This season, or at least this game, it feels like we're playing you just at the wrong time. We could do right now with a put right. We could sort of say it's a bit of a free hit, but I don't know if there's such a thing as a free hit when you're just above the relegation zone and you've shipped as many goals as we have of late. I think we've got the second worst defence in terms of goals conceded, and the rest of our numbers, I think some of them are actually the worst. So yeah, I think on our preview pod that we did, we suggested we'd take a 2-1 and run away with it, a 2-1 loss, and perhaps a valiant defeat would be brilliant. Anything more than that would be would be would be ecstatic with. But as for you guys, you've had a few really strange games, and obviously the Sunderland game sticks out, or the last moments of the Sunderland game sticks out. What do you think you're going to do with this game? Are you going to try and put it to bed and then bring on substitutions, or do you think we could see a rotation here, given the busy run of fixtures that we're approaching?
I don't think he'll rotate, because nobody from the bench has really impressed, or the ones who have are already in the team because they've come on because of injuries. What was the question again?
What sort of side do you think you're going to put out? Have we got any hope
Oh,
that you might
oh,
field a weakened side? You've already answered it.
no,
No.
no, no, no. So the lineup will be almost certainly Meslier in goal, Byram right back in for Bogle, who's suspended, Joe Rodon, Pascal Struijk, Junior Firpo, who's back from a suspension, Al Tanaka, Joe Rothwell, Willie Nonto, Brendan Aronson, Dan James, and probably Joel Peru, although he's not had much input the last sort of 7 games when he's replaced Matteo Joseph as starter. So that might be the only change. You might see Matteo Joseph. The pattern of games for Leeds United has so far this season has been we've been very, very, very good for 20 minutes, often not scoring, not capitalising on that. I remember one game very early on, I think it was 3-3. Was it Portsmouth? Yeah, it might have been the first. Yeah, it was the first game of the season. That was the best passage of play I think I've seen under Farker, and we had so many chances. We hit the crossbar 3 times. We only scored 1 goal in that period. We ended up it ended up being 3-3. But yeah, so that's the pattern of play. And then there'll be a 10-minute period. The away team will be on top for a bit. And then we'll sort of work our way back into it.
I'll
And
take
then
10 minutes. I'll take that.
and then we look absolutely knackered by about the 50th minute, 50, 60th minute. But he won't make any substitutions until the 70th minute because he does that like clockwork, like the German efficiency that you'd expect from Daniel Farke. He likes to keep substitutions in his back pocket to sort of waste time at the end of games, which is why he does that. And yeah, so and then the last sort of 20 minutes are just awful, especially if we've got a lead, because we just don't seem to want to do the things that keep opposition teams away from our goal, i.e., keep possession, play it around, don't do anything stupid, don't give away sloppy passes, don't try and be too direct. So instead of all that, we seem to have gone into this mode of sitting back and allowing the opposition to have possession, and that to me doesn't. That's not a very good tactic, not for my health, and not in footballing terms either. So that's the way I think the game will go, and it'll all be dependent upon, if we score early, for example, it'll follow a similar pattern to the Watford game, and many other games where we score two, and then 2-0 becomes, people talk about game states and how it's 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline. I think there was a meme. I can't remember what's that Twitter. What's that Twitter helm that they do these mashups of cliches
Oh,
responses?
Brian Gunn.
Yeah, there's a Brian Gunn of the 2-0 being a dangerous scoreline, and it is for us because we go if we go 2-0 up, that's almost the worst thing that can happen. And then you'll get a lot of possession and you'll have your opportunities. So, you know, I think that's how it will go. I don't know if you can capitalize on that. I don't know how well you're playing. Uh, it could there could be I could envision a scenario where it's 4-0 after 20 minutes. I could also envisage a scenario where if it's 0-0 after 20 minutes, then you've got a chance then, and then it's about whether we can come back. If we score first, you're almost certainly doomed, because I think I think we haven't lost where we've scored first in something like 60
Yeah,
championship games.
yeah.
So what you need to do if
Weather
you're
the
asking if
first
that's
20
what
minutes.
weather the storm, and pretty much don't score until like the 89th minute, something like that.
Oh, it's easy then. I'll pass that on to Wayne Rooney. Sure, I'm sure that'll be bullet pointed up on the whiteboard. Um, we hopefully, as for what we might do, we hopefully have Ibrahim Sissoko back if he's fit enough. He was suspended for his red card following clutching the throat of Perry Ng after his little outhousery moment, which was really out of character for him because he gets kicked a lot, being the type of winger he is, and he just gets on with it very smoothly. So it's always been one of the qualities about him I've most admired, that he takes the kick in and just gets on with the game. Now he will be targeted. I hope Firpo doesn't have that in his locker. I hope Firpo's a gentleman and lets him play. But I imagine the contrary. I imagine Firpo will be in close
It's
attention.
emotionally turbulent, I would
Yeah, that
describe Firpo as. If we'd still had Alioski or Mateus Kleek, who were, who took the housery element to the realm of artistry, then he'd be in trouble. I mean, Alioski got a few players sent off, and so did Kleek and Bamford actually.
yeah, Bamford is
Yeah,
famous for his
yeah,
his what me ref face, I believe, is
yeah,
the
yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
Also, we might be playing Andre Gray, who doesn't look match fit, but had a pretty decent impact on the weekend and has obviously championship now switch. We are in somewhat short supply of So whether he starts or whether he does the last half hour or so, hopefully he might make a difference against top quality centre backs where Obafemi and Hardy, who've not been in the brightest of form, might struggle. Certainly, they're also not the biggest of units. They're both sort of more in behind strikers than physical units, and I think you've got an incredibly complete back line in terms of both dynamism and size and strength. So I think we might need even to get someone up closer to the one striker, or as we did on the weekend, revert to two up top in desperation to sort of cause you some problems. But I don't think there's anything else that I had on. I think you've ticked all my questions either directly or indirectly in your comments. Was there anything else that you think the fans, the Argyle supporters, might be interested to know, or any other anything else you
Yeah.
wanted to share before we wrap it up and I ask you for a prediction?
Yeah, so Leeds injuries and suspensions. Just Bogle is out. Verber, he's back in training. So Austrian international. I don't know if you saw him score an own goal
Yeah.
against France in the Euros.
Yes, indeed.
Which is one of those roll your eye moments. Ramazani out, Ampadu out, Gruev out, and there were some interesting facts that I found out in my little prep before this. So last loss to Plymouth, or for you guys, your last win. So your last victory against Leeds United. Can you have a guess?
Is it
What
70
year?
something? Isn't it 76?
What year it is? It's 80 something.
80 something, is it?
Give yourself some credit.
I don't think, is it we haven't won at Elland Road since 70 something. It might be that
No, that's a little bit too ambitious.
no.
Okay, so your last win against Leeds United came on the 9th of April 1989. It was a 1-0 win at home for you guys. Last win at Elland Road for Plymouth was the 24th of February 1962.
Oh, woof. Wow, that's going to be fun.
And that's actually the only win at Elland Road.
I can't imagine we played you that much, to be fair. You were normally in the upper echelons of the Football League system, while we were banging around. I mean, in our early years, to be fair, like sort of even after the war, we'd sort of like championship mainstays, but the last sort of 30 or 40 years have not been kind to Argyle. So we've probably not played you. Of all the sort of, the fixtures that you've played over the years, I can imagine Argyle isn't one of the more frequent ones.
It's 43 is the answer. We've played 43 times since 1931. So it's not an enormous amount, but it's not insignificant. It's a relatively medium-sized sample pool, let's say. So at Elland Road, played 22, one. So I'm doing it from my perspective. I'm going to do it from your perspective because
by all means,
all of your viewers will be Plymouth Argyle fans. So
it sounds as grim. It sounds as grim whichever way you put it. So it's no problem.
So you've played 22 times at Elland Road. You've lost 15, drawn 8, and won 1 since 1931. I didn't realise that your highest finish, Plymouth's highest ever finish in the English football pyramid, was 4th in the second division, or the second tier, let's say, in 1952-53.
They've also, I think they finished the same. I think they finished 4th a couple of times earlier in their history too, but that was their best because of like goal difference or points accumulated or whatever. But yeah, they very interesting story as a journalist. The Lion Who Never Roared, the story of Jack Leslie. I don't know if you're aware of it, who was the first black man to be named in an England squad. And then it was announced, and then subsequently he disappeared from the squad. He was an Argyle striker. There's a great book by Matt Tiller, which I recommend highly, which discusses his life and that event in his career. But yeah, he and Sammy Black, two of the biggest Argyle legends of history. Sammy Black, forward, who I think is our club record goal scorer, diminutive Scotsman. But yeah, Jack Leslie, he was a very, very good. He was our captain for a long time, very good player for us. And they led the team to 4th place finishes, I think, in the second tier also. But yeah, I think that one that you mentioned was the best in terms of statistical output, and therefore is our ranked as our best finish. But yeah, I think you'll be interested in the story of Jack Leslie. There's a statue of him now outside the ground, and I think the boardroom is named after him. But yeah, just a little aside. And if any of our viewers haven't yet read Matt Tiller's brilliant The Lion Who Never Roared, they should definitely go and seek it out. Matt's a writer for profession, a comedy writer, as well as many other strings in his bow. So it's a really good, riveting read. Lots of humour and lots of in-jokes for Argyle fans and football fans as well. So little plug
That's
there,
a
Matt.
fantastic title, that is. The Lion Who Never Roared.
Yeah.
Very sort of evocative, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's this kind of a similar story with Leeds, where I don't know if you know Albert Johannesson.
No.
He has a blue plaque. He was the first black player to play in an FA Cup final. If you've heard of Billy Bremner, there's a statue of Billy outside Elland Road, and Albert I think he was the first like regular player in the English Football League. I'm not sure exactly of the exact details of the story, but he used to get obviously a significant amount of racial abuse, and when opposition players were doing that, Billy Bremner would go around kicking. Don't think he needed an excuse for that, but he definitely got one there, and very tragic end to that story. Obviously, not a lot of support for ex-footballers, not a lot of support for black people in general, or black footballers. There were not a lot of wages back then either. And for somebody so talented on a sort of global scale to sort of, succumb to alcoholism, depression, and living alone, hardly any friends, and so on and so forth. I think obviously things have changed a lot, but it's interesting that we both have sort of black histories. I guess you could say that, and there's lots of very, very famous tales from Leeds United with regards to racism. In the 80s, the National Front were kicked out of Elland Road, and they were recruiting outside Elland Road after games, and there was a big movement to get rid of them, and the city itself as well. Oswald Mosley, I don't know if you know him, the British Union of Fascists. They've just had a blue plaque unveiled at Holbeck Moor, where Mosley had planned this march from the city to the moor and was going to give this big speech, and I think there were thousands of fascists, or hundreds or thousands, not more than like 2,000 of his supporters following him down to the moor, and he thought it was going to be this big political parade to gain support for fascism, and he was met by 30,000 anti-fascist Leeds residents who said, you're not coming here, mate, or words to that effect, and kicked them out. So yeah, so it's interesting that the Lion Who Never Roared. I'll have a look at Jack Leslie. Fascinating. Thank you.
No worries. So prediction then, after all that, what do you think the final score will be?
Sorry, yeah, whittering on.
Well, after all that, I meant the whole recording of 33 minutes, not your little oration there. That was really interesting to listen to as a history fan. So I wasn't trying to be critical of your aside there.
No, it's not you. It's me. I'm being self-critical. It's me. It's 33 minutes of me whittering on. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it can go one of two ways. I think 2-1 Leeds is not a bad prediction from you. I think, it really depends on our mood, but we're not fantastic in we're the best in evening games, generally tend to be. We're not that fantastic at Saturday 3 p.m, and the rare occasions when it happens, when Sky forget about putting us on or moving games for us. I'm gonna say 3. I'm gonna say 3-0.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'd probably take it right now.
But and especially if we score early, if we score, if we score 3 goals really early, expect Wayne Rooney to get the hiding of his life. It will be non-stop chanting
It's the
about
best. It's the
Wayne
best thing
Rooney.
about football, in my opinion, is the interactions in the stand. I think, I think football, English football, especially the gallows humour, that's the best. That's what makes it what it is. So, kind of
Awesome.
hope it might go that way. If any place to get a Tonkin and get some good noise, some good humour from the stands, it will be Elland Road. So, if it
I'll be
goes that
sitting
way,
in front of you, by the way. I'm in the West
oh,
Stand paddock
I'll
in
bring
the
some tomatoes.
in the tier just below. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Adonis.
Wait, what's your prediction?
My prediction, I
Yeah.
think, I'm trying to think what we have a prediction competition amongst us at the start of each calendar month. All the contributors make the predictions for the month. The
Mm.
loser gets a wooden spoon and has to do a forfeit. So I would have made a prediction for this, but I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what it was. But 2-1. Let's go for 2-1 because I'm hopeful that we won't get a spanking. It'll be a fighting, a battling, a battling 2-1. And and then we'll smash Pompey at home the following game, which is, I think, where all Argyle fans' focus is right now.
Listen, I hope you stay up. You're clearly a great set of supporters, and yeah, I hope you do. I hope you do well. I hope you don't go back down.
I hope
You
those peacocks are not roaring on Saturday.
go.
Thanks ever so much for
Very,
your
very
time, mate.
good. Thanks, Ruben. Cheers, cheers, cheers.